What's up, people? Welcome back to another episode of The Mindful CEO. I'm your co-host, Chris Angel, with here our other co-host, Aaron Hendon, the
What's
man,
up?
Aaron Hendon. This is a workshop day in the podcast. We're actually going to workshop setting up sort of our framework for the Mindful CEO. Like how frameworks, I think, are helpful. I think they help us to sort of focus look, mindfulness is a really big topic. So by distinguishing what we think is important, it actually gives us all a place to meet around and talk about, rather than being out in the weeds about, something we're not in alignment with. So
I think the other thing that the framework does is it creates edges. Otherwise if you're going to create a painting, you're going to have edges.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
One of the things it's funny, I'm old enough to have done mixtapes.
Me too. I did mixtapes. Yeah.
You did mixtapes and then burn CDs.
Yeah.
Okay. And mixtapes were, you had 45 minutes.
Right.
And I used to make sure that, there would be as little time as possible, so that if you were on one of those auto reversing
yes, I love
tape decks, it would just play. It wouldn't sound, like it was tight, because that was the framework, was the 45 minutes. And then you got a CD, and a CD was longer and didn't have to be flipped, but it also had an end.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. And then you needed to put on a tape, you needed to put the songs in a particular order.
Right?
You couldn't shuffle a tape.
Right. Yes.
Right. You had the framework there was these songs go in this order every single time. And so there was a lot of, I really thought about this. A lot of thought went into each of those tapes. They had to flow particularly. Yes. But then when you got a CD, it still had edges. It still had to be a particular length, but you could shuffle.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You didn't necessarily have to get them in order. Right. There was something a little bit freeing about that. And then, but you also lost something, because if you did them in a particular order, you weren't guaranteed whoever got the CD was going to play them in that order.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So there was something loose about that. But now we don't have either of those. Now we just have playlists.
Yeah. Yeah.
On Spotify. And those have no end.
Right.
You can have those be, I have a 24-hour playlist.
Wow.
Right. Of songs. And it just winds up being a container, a dumpster, and I'm not complaining about it. Okay. I'm not saying it shouldn't, because I clearly could cap it myself at 60 minutes and keep it in an order and run it that way.
Yeah.
If I wanted to, but I don't have to.
Right.
And when I don't have to, I don't. And there's something distinct about that. Yeah. It winds up just being a dumpster, and you collect what you collect, and there's something sort of exciting about it when I, put one of those playlists on that are longer than the occasion I have, like one of them's summer barbecue, and I rarely barbecue for 24 hours. But, so there's a surprise element of what songs are going to be here. What am I going to actually hit over the course of the time?
Yeah.
Unlike a cassette tape where I knew this was the order.
That's good.
And so frameworks are like that for me. I think that, this is putting those edges on the conversation versus mindfulness, which is, a epically huge, a lot of stuff could fit in there, where we want to define, okay, here are the places we want to focus on and give it some form. Yeah. And then inside that, the creativity can happen. How's that for a metaphor?
That's beautiful. I'll add one more thing. I always love Seth Godin quotes. Two things that come to mind. One is people like us talk about things like this. A framework sort of is distinguishing the things we talk about. That people like us, if you are interested in this conversation, the framework would actually help you know what Aaron and I mean by mindful CEO. Because, you could mean all kinds of stuff about mindful CEO, but here's what Aaron and I mean about mindful CEO. And the other Seth Godin quote was from Tribes, that a tribe is a group of people connected to one another connected to a leader and connected to an idea. And I think a framework helps us put edges around the idea. That way, if Aaron and I's flavor of mindful CEO is your jam, then you can hang out and mumble with us, jam with us. And if it's not, you know that and move on. So
right.
I think frameworks are super helpful when you're trying to bring a group of people together towards a shared intention. And that's what we're workshopping today. So
great.
Yeah. So be a fly in the wall, because Aaron and I don't know where this is going. We're really going to lay this out.
Right. But that's the framework for this particular episode of the podcast. And I just love the idea of putting edges on something, framing something so that you can work with it. So it's not just some mass, right? All right, good. So we do have, where we're starting with this, Chris, I think, is that, we've got the three corners of mindfulness, mastermind, and
mission.
Yep. Right. And we've talked about those a little bit over the last couple of episodes. We certainly talked about mission last week.
Yep.
And mindfulness a lot. And then mastermind is the opportunity for multiple people to get together. I'd love to get that Napoleon Hill quote referenced in what we do. And I have that somewhere, but I won't go get it now. But that's the idea of mastermind, when two or more people get together, looking at a common goal. The force is unstoppable. Something like that. Yeah. So mastermind community, mastermind holds community. So we'll start to flesh those out. And then I do like manifest as sort of the central piece, like what is getting created in reality. And I think that's an important piece of the CEO aspect, is that, there's something in the physical universe that's happening. That there's an intention around it happening either in a particular way, or for it to show up with particular results, or for something, but there's definitely an intention that the physical universe move. And I think manifest is a good expression of that.
Perfect. I love it. So then we could say we've got four edges, four corners, four edges to this framework: mindfulness, mission, mastermind, and manifest. And now for you and I to start digging into what I like to work in for. So with the four ingredients of mindfulness, what would you, and let's start there. What do we say
you want to put four within each of the four?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like how I learned it was like little Russian dolls, right? That are stacked inside each other. Like it's just and you, as a framework, it's awesome because you really can start to find the edges of the edges of the edges. Like until you're like, this is granular enough. I don't need to go any further than this.
Yeah, good. And even that thing, so for people listening, that thing that you just sort of threw out there was like, I like to work in fours. That's like saying, okay, this playlist is going to be 60 minutes. Yeah. Doesn't have to be. You could work in threes.
Sure.
You could work in sixes or in fives. Wouldn't matter, but you get to say how long it is, but and the purpose of that is to say something. Yeah. So that whatever it is that you're building has edges. If you find that you said 4 and 3 is going to be, change it. Right. Yeah. Right. But I'm willing to appease your need for 4. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll have an itch that I just can't scratch. If we do 3 or 5, I'll be like, this isn't right.
Okay. All right. So inside mindfulness, there's meditation. I don't think we have to stick with M's, but we just are going there. Yeah. So I don't know. So meditation. So before we get to the 4, let's just put stuff in the bucket and we'll see what 4 rise to the top. So meditation practices, there's mindfulness practices, which are meditation, or I think meditation should come after practices. I think practices, because you could I agree practice in a lot of ways. And I think what Alan pointed to is important. Yeah. That mindfulness does not equal meditation.
Right. That's a higher category. Practices is a higher category that holds
meditation.
Yeah. Good.
I'm with you. Okay. I don't know what else comes with
Yeah.
mindfulness.
Well, so, and then we've talked before about the principles of the 9 principles, right? So we've got non-judging, patience, beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, acceptance, letting go, gratitude, generosity. We've got these. Is that 7 or 9? We got these things, and I would call those principles.
Yep. Great.
So I think those are two of the 4 categories.
Ooh, we're on principles.
Oh, we are. We don't. And as always in frameworks, you don't have to stick with alliteration or anything like that. Just, like let the truth, honor the truth. And then if you can wordsmith it, then cool.
Right. But even that, having a framework, and even if it was on P's, it would force your creativity to go down a particular tunnel.
Yeah.
Right. Which is where manifestation came from, really.
Ooh, yeah. Right.
So, don't resist it if it's there. So, I mean, if the game then becomes find 2 more P's, there might be 2 more P's in mindfulness. So there's the principles, there's the practices.
Yeah. I often just try to think like what else in my own mindfulness has been important to me.
Well, sort of within practice. So, there's the there's the results of mindfulness, or there's the how it's impacted you, it's growth, but that may just be an outcome of practices, so I don't know. And you could certainly argue that principles go within, you could argue either way, but let's keep principles and practices separate.
2 words that came up for me are environment. Like I noticed that I can be more mindfulness is easier in some environments and less in others. And sometimes I'll play a game with myself in order to create more. Example, I lately, thanks to you, I've been on my walks with my dogs. The first half, I will take a word of the 7 words or 9 words, whichever. Like last week was trust. This week is appreciation. And I'll just move through the first, I'll just talk about what I appreciate. And I'm bringing mindfulness to that environment. That environment before was not, it was neutral or antagonistic, because my dogs are strong-headed. So I'd be like, frustrated or pissed off, like, quit pulling me and stop smelling that and let's get going. But I started to bring mindfulness, and it shaped the environment, and that made it anyway.
I love it.
I think that's an interesting thought.
I think it's an interesting thought too. All right, so put environment down in there, which also could be place.
Ooh, well done. Extra credit for you. You get a star.
Exactly. Okay. And then you said you had a couple of thoughts, but was that the one thought?
The second one was relationships. And I don't know, that may or may not be important, but if I think like a mindful CEO, is there a way to bring mindfulness to my relationships? Because I often think of it as a very solitary thing. Mindfulness, my my alone time. But is there a place for mindfulness with others? What'd you say?
Partnership.
Oh, come on. This can't be that easy, that good.
Okay.
In the pocket. Oh, pocket.
But that's good. But that's, in terms of CEO, right? The CEO aspect of this conversation, partnerships, right? I mean, just to keep it in peace, but right. Place, environment.
Yeah. Which is distinct from Mastermind. I think mindfulness as a way of being with others versus Mastermind as a doing with others, to me, those are different.
Yeah. I mean, the partnership aspect is, Mastermind for me occurs as it happens at a time and a place.
Yeah.
With an intention, and it's got, you're actually it's a verb.
Yes.
Right. And partnership is a noun.
Nice. Okay. I mean, if we just looked at those principles, practice, place, and partnership, they feel distinct. They feel like separate edges. Number 1. Yeah. Number 2, they all feel important, at least worth exploring. building a playlist around. Like I could build a playlist around partnership in the sense of mindfulness. I could do that. That feels important to me.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
All right, good. So, and then we'll see where those go, and we'll start to fill in those boxes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Fill in from those edges. So that's
I think just is just a teachable moment or a moment to observe. Just like, I think whenever I work with frameworks, this is sort of how it goes. Like I get a hunch that this feels important and it feels true in my lived experience, but I haven't fully distinguished it. So it's kind of a marker, and then it's a place to go deeper. But I think sometimes people think, oh, I have to have all the answers, and it doesn't work like that. I think you have a direction to go explore. And for example, like partnership, and now it's like, okay, let me go see what's in my lived experience about partnership so I can find the edges of partnership in my life. And how has mindfulness been a part of that? And this is how you distinguish your life.
Yeah. And that's the point, is to give you a lens or a framework from which to see your life. And this is the aspect of mindfulness.
Yes. Right.
Good. Okay. So that's that.
Okay.
Let's move. Mission.
Yeah.
Okay. Mission. What's important about mission? Well, so, part of mission is your calling, right? And I think that's, and we've been using calling, mission, vision, purpose synonymously.
Yeah.
Right. So if we come up with another word, we can see which.
And is true north for you the same as those?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Authentic voice is the same.
Okay.
Right.
That's good. Yeah.
I think that's all, speaking to who you are as a human being, what inspires you, your mission, your purpose. What is it? What is it that you're here for? So that's all inside that container. So there's mission. Then there's okay, so you could break it out. Okay, so if you were going to call it your mission, right? If you were going to look at mission, then you could inside this break it out. Don't have them all lumped up.
Oh, sure.
Right. You could have your vision as distinct.
Yeah.
Right. Which could be distinct from your calling.
Yep.
Right. There's a distinction. I just don't know how valuable it is to parse it out, but it might be like, you could have it as a hierarchy. You have the mission is the actions you're taking to fulfill your purpose, which is a direct outcome of your calling. This is like, this feels like the work that you and I started a while ago, like, with the concentric circles and the
infinite game and the
infinite game.
Yeah. Essence, tipping point, mapping. Yeah. I mean, right. I think there's sometimes one of the places I'll go is I'll think about how is it typically taught now and what breaks down in the way it's taught now. If I think mission and vision often gets, I don't want to say diluted, but it loses the impact of cathedral building. Like mission and vision becomes a Lamborghini leaning process rather than what is the context that's worth my life. Like calling for me holds that.
Yeah.
Cathedral building holds that, but mission vision doesn't hold that. So I go, okay, well, I could see where it would make sense to talk about calling and purpose.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's distinct from mission and vision.
Great.
At least how it's taught in, corporate spaces.
Yeah. Good. So then let's just put calling down as a aspect there, calling / purpose, which is this. I don't think I don't want to start splitting that here.
Yeah, I don't know. I think those are synonymous.
But then there's something about, all right, then there's the planning, the goals, the fulfillment, calling your shot of what are the games you're going to play to fulfill on that, right? Right. Like there's, so there's my calling that people experience their own agency.
Yep.
people have the experience of their own agency. That's my calling. Then there's, I mean, you could say that's an infinite game as well.
Yeah, right.
Right. That's an infinite game. But then there's, I mean, you could say, you know, the games we play as a, you know, I mean, we're now completely, you know, blown alliteration, but unless you were going to go contest, calling and contests.
I was thinking container. I was gonna have another C word in there, container.
Okay. I don't mind container actually. But it's like that. It's like the games, you know, what are you setting up? All right, let's keep a container. Let's see what happens. And I do like that. You know, I like forcing my brain to think. When it's too much space, there's too many options, too many tunnels that can go down. Really, the thing with the mixtapes, I'm just going to keep going back to because I've thought about this before, you know, when in Spotify, I'm like, damn it, you know, like this has no end. I'm not forced into ending this. I like not having to deal with the order, you know, like the burning of a CD. Like I love the surprise of a shuffle. Anyway, putting a constraint on your constraint.
That's not bad.
Okay,
I could see where that would play, but
I think container is constraints as well. But
oh,
constraints
sure.
has such a negative connotation. But
I see.
The reality of it is, it's a constraint. You're intentionally, you know, it's like running a marathon is a constraint. No, you don't. It's the point's not getting 24 miles. You could drive that. Right. The constraint is you got to run it.
Yes.
That's the constraint, is that you have to run it, and playing inside that constraint is the purpose.
Right.
All right. So container / constraint, calling, and then cheese. Cheese is always good. You can't get enough cheese. Like cheese.
Well, so calling is, I think if we think hierarchically here, calling is sort of where the whole mission starts. It starts with what is the heartbeat of it? What's the essence of it? What's the calling of it? And then from there, constraining it to say that people experience their own agency. How do you constrain that? Because that could be so many.
Yeah. What's the container you're going to put that in? What are the like that? Okay. And then
I think you're right. Container is the constraint. So containers constrain it. So then now that I have a container that shapes it, now what's the next piece that would be important inside the container? In fulfilling mission.
Well, the word that came to me was coaching. I mean, I'm just now thinking in C's, you know. But there's that. I mean, you know, and
is that strategy to you, or what?
Well, yeah. I mean, it involves action. It involves feedback. It involves a truing up to, you know. I don't know if the coaching's the right word there. I mean, it just happens to be a C word, but you know, that creativity is a C word that goes in there too. But I don't now. Maybe now we've just gone too far down the tunnel. But there is something about, okay, you now got the container. There's something about now the playing of the game. There's something about the implementation of that, and then the feedback and the feedback loop and the opportunity to continuously improve, and maybe that's what it is, continuum. But that sort of cycle, another C word, of action, feedback.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That feels true to me. If I thought just about the C words aside, just like, what is this third piece holding to me? It's the implementation of the creation of the calling inside the container. Like, okay, I have a calling. I've created some edges with a container. And now there is the creation of it. There's just the getting to the work of it. Like, let's go do it.
Okay, good.
And I think creation is a good C word that holds that.
I would do that. I think that's fine. I'm in.
Okay. And we can, that can be there for now. And if we find a better word later, but at least you and I know what we mean by that though.
Yes, exactly. And then, so now you've created it.
Yeah. Or you're in motion of walking it home. You're creating it over time in all
right. Ongoingly creating it.
Yep.
And then you're, I don't know, critique.
Yeah. I was gonna say like some kind of feedback loop, some sort of like, how do I adjust? How do I find my next gap? How do I adjust?
Yeah. Keep it rolling.
Uh-huh.
In that direction, you keep expanding it, you keep fine tuning it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I really like the idea of expanding. Like you can be in a creation for a while and stop looking forward.
Right.
But the idea that you're in a game of expanding is I like that quite a bit because it has future pull for me. And it reminds me to look up on the horizon and not just down in the trenches of where I'm going to work,
Yeah. Well, if you were committed to doing it with a C, then you could do either, cycle of growth or continual growth.
Yeah.
And I think that would work there because there's something about the cycle of it, the spiral of it, the upward trend, the well, just put continual growth in there as a placeholder. Okay. So you've got mission, which holds your calling, the container, creation, and the continual growth. That's fine. That's
great.
A lot in there. All right, and then you've got Mastermind.
Right. So our third
as a verb.
Yep.
Right.
So we've got mindfulness, mission, mastermind is the third sort of top level thing here.
Well, what are the important pieces of masterminding, of mastermind as a verb? Authenticity. I was going to say shit that I think is important in there is, there's an openness, there's an authenticity, there's a rigor to it. There's a willingness to be contributed to. There's a courage that it takes. All those things are part of that.
Almost like the rules rules of engagement, like there's a lot of ways you could come together in the verb of a mastermind, but these are almost become the rules of engagement, right? Like openness, authenticity, rigor, courage. These are, if I think of, this is what I'm agreeing to show up as, like, or the elements that make our mastermind in a mindful CEO work. Like what makes our mastermind work are these 4 tenets, these 4,
unless there's okay, good. So unless the tenants are one of the 4 things, and then there's practices in there too. So, but
that's good.
So there's the there's I don't know if these are all tenants or what, but there's a commitment. There's an openness, a wonder, a curiosity. If you were going to do it that way, you could do now we got to go back to the first one and have it be C's, but because you could do commitment, community, courage, and curiosity. But those just feel like principles. I don't think that there's a deep dive inside of each one of those.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I do think that's the, you've got the tenants. Okay. Let's just say there's the
I like that.
tenants
Is one. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Right. So tenants of Mastermind. And that includes courage, all those other ones get put in there. Okay. Yeah. I don't think there's a deep dive on each of those. Yeah. But the tenants and the rules of engagement are good.
That tenants are the rules of engagement. Yes.
Yeah. So either one. So if we come up with 3 T's or 3 R's, we're good. Okay.
Good, okay. Good.
Okay.
I like that. One of the things that's there for me is like format, and that may or may not be the word we want, but I'm just saying, like, how do we do this thing called, and it's different than tenants. Tenants are like the rules of engagement, but the format is like what do we say? What kind of scrimmaging do we say produces the result? What kind of like playing together?
Yeah, good.
Has been effective for you and I, in our lives.
Yeah.
And that maybe that's not a place to look, but
the format. Okay. There's also, what was the other word? Oh God, I just had another word. Format and I forgot.
That's okay. It's almost like how we do what we do. Like the tenets are why we do it, or the way in which we do it, but the format is
the how.
Yeah, like I think. Well, sometimes it's helpful to go what hasn't worked for me. Like what hasn't worked for me is a bunch of cliches. Like I don't really appreciate cliches that I've heard before, and people, sharing the latest meme, although you're the meme king, like memes that just there's no depth to it. And so when I've been in environments where we're exploring the edges, when I've been in environments where we're asking better questions, these types of formats tend to help me instead of bore me. And I think it's important that the format we create around this mastermind is not one that, bores people, but is one that challenges people and invites them into a bigger answer because we ask a bigger question.
Yeah. So in the mastermind. Okay, good. That's one way that I've been talking about the mastermind when I'm talking to people about it is it's a direction without a destination. Okay, so and I just think that's an important, I don't know how you get that said in a word. Sure. But it's process versus it's not process versus result oriented. That's not right. There's the tenants. Like what's important. There's okay, well, we're just time. What's important about it's just nothing to distinguish about, although slowing down but that's not really a function of mastermind, that's more in mindfulness.
Sure. I wanted to ask you about what has been powerful for you in the autonomy course that you're doing with Jeff. Like what are some of the things that have been powerful in that format?
Yeah, great. Well, the quality of the questions that are raised, I think are great.
And then is there a way that when the question is raised that you all wrestle with it? What do you do with the question? Do you journal it? Do you talk about it together? Is it?
Yes. All different ways, as many different ways as you can get to grapple with the question. And I think that's an important piece of this is that that I just think it's important that a mastermind have a direction. I don't know what else to say about it right there, but it doesn't need a destination, but it needs a direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a mindless, it's not a wandering for the it's I just don't know how else to say it. It has a direction. Okay. So maybe this doesn't fit within the alliterative world, but
well, I think yeah, it doesn't matter. Alliteration comes second. Right. I think if you saw tenants are one piece of this, and direction is another piece of that. I think those hold things. That does make sense.
Things, right. Yeah. And then the other thing about direction is and that's one of the things that works in the autonomy course is that it's outside of me directing it. It's someone's got an idea of where it's going, and I'm willing to engage. So there's well, you could put engagement, engagement / enrollment
as a separate piece or as part of tenants or what?
I know. I think it's a separate piece. See, there's direction and then there's engagement. Like without engagement, I think engagement's important because otherwise you wind up with observing, and observation won't work.
I like that one.
And that includes engagement engagement's important. Good. So direction, tenants,
and engagement.
And
just for my sake, how is engagement different than a rule of engagement in tenants? How is?
Well, good. Okay. So engagement is a call to you actually taking action, actually participating, actively thinking about things, not observing. Engaged versus observer, right? It's not how you engage. That's the tenets, is how you engage, but you must engage in order to be in a mastermind. You cannot observe. Does that communicate?
I think so. They feel close to me still.
Well, how are you going to interact with the tenants? You could interact with the tenants like, if we were going to take courage and curiosity as part of the tenants, let's just say those two, and what else goes in there?
You had rigor, authenticity,
fine.
Curiosity.
Authenticity, just fine, without getting it too many. Just say those 4 things are the tenants, right? Curiosity, rigor. That's how you would engage, but there's no necessary, it's not the same as calling for actual engagement.
Okay.
Right? Like you are participating in the mastermind and you're called, like, how are you going to display courage?
Then I almost feel like tenants would fit inside of engagement. Like engagement is the bigger category here. Right. And tenants are a way in which you engage. Like, because courage is a way of engaging. Yes. Rigor, a way of engaging.
Yes. Good.
So I feel like you could collapse those tenets inside of.
So then you have engagement and direction.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And then, at least a third. What's a third?
Side note, this is always my litmus test creating frameworks is like, how does it feel? Like a playlist, like when you're making your mixtape and you hear how one song transitions into the next, you're like, dude, that was a great transition. Love that. Yeah. That's how this is feeling. I'm like, this is.
Well, the other thing in that, okay, good. Then, this could be how you engage, or it could be a whole separate thing, is serendipity.
Say more. Serendipity.
Well, when you just said that, like, that was a great mix.
Yeah.
That was a great song to come up, when the thing's on shuffle. Right. And it goes one to another. Yes. Are you open to the serendipity? Now, openness and is a way of engaging, but I think serendipity is in and of itself worth exploring.
Is that a fruit of something though? Isn't serendipity, you can't really predict it or cause it. It's a fruit of.
Yeah, but I just think it's worth exploring because, if you're going to engage with courage and curiosity and rigor and courage.
Yeah.
Did I say courage twice? With wonder, serendipity may be an outcome.
Or maybe serendipity is related to manifest, that the manifestation is
good.
Is the serendipity.
Totally. Put serendipity under manifest. Good. I'm with you.
I feel, yeah, go ahead.
Well, there's also something about a requirement of Mastermind is a sufficient number of people. Now, can you mastermind with 2 like we are right now? Sure. And there may just be something like, as a tenant, respect, may come up as a tenant as well. I mean, we may just have 2.
We have to have 4.
Okay, well then keep going.
I have a thought. I have a couple thoughts that are so we have direction.
Yep.
And we have engagement.
Yep.
Then there is, which is how we're doing the verb of masterminding together. Like there's the way we're engaging. Then there are a couple other potential ingredients in there might be what is possible together outside of the mastermind. Is there collaboration? Is there some co-creation? Is there some, I'm not saying there has to be, but sometimes I think what we miss, the way it is now, is we jump into a mastermind and we're there for our own benefit to get what we need to get to go where we want to go. And we sometimes miss the possibility of what could get created with others who are already pointed in the same direction.
Good.
We just don't look there.
So what, collaboration
collaboration, creation. Yeah. I mean,
we already have creation as under something else. So collaboration, I dig. As a worthwhile exploration, I could take that. I'm into that. Well, what else did you have?
And then I was just thinking of like what makes the mastermind better. And the thought was resources. Like, is there a way to, and this doesn't be that word, but how do we pour fuel on this thing? How do we resource it? How do we expand it, level it up?
Good.
Yeah, I don't know what that looks like, but to me, it kind of invites you and I and the group to go, hey, it is how it is now. And what if it were like this? Or what if we added this? And there's an invitation to resource it more, different, better.
So we've got tenants, or no, sorry, we have engagement.
Yeah.
We have resources, collaboration, and direction. Okay.
Not set in stone, but
okay.
Definitely like direction and engagement.
Hang on, I'm turning on the heater in my room.
Okay. I definitely like direction. I definitely like engagement. Collaboration is interesting to me because of what it, I think, invites with the members of the mastermind outside the existing question that's being asked. Like there is some other relationship available here if you would just look at it.
Yep. Good.
And then resources is just kind of like another way to take it further. And maybe there's a different word for that, but again, not attached.
Okay. I'm down.
Okay. And I'm happy. I love to play with wordsmith in it, so I can do that later, but
all right. Okay. And then manifest.
Yep.
Which we now have serendipity. Intention as an aspect of manifestation. maybe.
Yeah.
There's something like tending to the vibration.
I was totally thinking frequency, vibration, somewhere in there. Like, how are you being causing the matter of the vibration of it? Yep, love that.
Yeah. And then cause of the matter, I think, goes with intention.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. So we've got serendipity, intention, vibration, and the word that showed up is fulfillment.
As in the
both,
following through of something, or as in the feeling of something?
all of it, both sides. So there's the experience of being fulfilled, and then there's the realization, what was the other aspect you just
follow
said?
Through.
The follow through, right? The
fulfillment of it. Yeah. The
action of fulfillment. And then there's the experience of fulfillment. And I think both sides of that word are worth exploring.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Nice. That came together quickly. That section came together quickly. So serendipity.
And then for I don't know, I feel like we either want to get everything alliterated or none of it alliterated. I find it problematic that two are alliterated and two are not.
Yeah, no, I couldn't do that. That would mess with my OCD on that.
Right.
I think we can go, sometimes that takes me just time to let it breathe and come back and play with words. So we can do that off recording, but I feel like we have something now. We found some edges.
Yeah.
To, what conversation you and I are hosting. Like we said, hey, Aaron and I are having a dinner party. The dinner party is called the Mindful CEO, or we're making a mixtape. It's called the Mindful CEO. And this is the conversation or the playlist we're hosting. This is, any conversation we have would be somehow connected to these four pieces and the pieces inside of those four pieces. Like everything could find its way back to here because we have edges.
Yeah, everything would fit inside one of these 20 ideas.
Yep.
Or one of these 16.
Yep.
Ideas. So read them off.
Yeah. So I'll hit top level: mindfulness, mission, mastermind, and manifest. Inside of mindfulness, we've got the principles, the practice of it, the place of it, and the partnership. Inside of mission, we've got calling, the container, the ongoing creation, and the continual growth or expansion. In mastermind, we've got the direction we're all headed, the engagement, the collaboration, and the resources. And then in manifest, we've got serendipity, intention, vibration, and fulfillment.
Okay. Good.
And I think you and I can play with that. You and I can sleep on it, but I think that's some pretty good work there. And I didn't know, I've never done this recorded, so that you and I could do this recorded is pretty, I think that's pretty good. That's pretty succinct.
Yeah. Well, I think there's just to wrap this particular conversation, this episode up, I think the takeaway for anyone listening is, to be able to lay out your canvas upon which you're going to, create whatever it is you're out to fulfill, right? We're fulfilling a dinner party, a mixtape called the Mindful CEO, whatever your it's going to, for me, it's going to fit inside one of these four things, whatever you're out to fulfill, whatever difference you're out to make. You could, it's important that you have a delineated canvas upon which you're painting, upon which you're constructing a set of materials. If you want to look at it like a sculptor, a list of ingredients, if it's a dinner party, you know, and then you want to look, I like dinner party also as a metaphor, just because, you know, you don't, you know, it doesn't make sense to serve, you know, you're not, there's, you want to make sure that each piece of the meal makes sense
yeah,
with
right.
each other piece of the meal. You want, you know, the importance of
yeah,
of doing, of whatever it is, of laying out, you know, the, yeah, I do. I'm getting hung up that some of them are not alliterated.
I can work on that.
We can definitely figure that out. But the importance of taking the time to frame it will give you a direction, will give you, you know, a way of operating. That without a way of focusing your activity and the way of thinking about it, so that it actually has a chance to grow. That without which it's too formless to actually be meaningful. It's too formless to, you know, as long as you're including, and I'm really committed that, you know, it includes serendipity, that it includes the ability to grow, it includes a direction, not a destination. It includes, you know, I think people should feel free to steal these as principles, as ways of thinking, that this particular container is useful. The container we just laid out is how we think about things, so that we can actually, you know, I think about it like I think about lead gen for my business. Like when someone gives me a no, I'm never going to buy a house, right? Or I can take them off my lead sheet. I don't have to put my attention on those things because they're not going to produce fruit. So I can prune that. And, you know, it's funny. I think about like when I'm growing tomatoes, one of the important aspects of growing tomatoes is trimming those plants early enough so that the fruit that you do get, it gets sweet. If you just let the tomato plant just grow and produce anything it automatically is going to produce, you wind up with a plant that, first of all, is untenable. And the fruit itself isn't as good because it's not been, it doesn't, it has nothing really gets, the sugar never really gets developed in any of the plants. That there's just too much wild growth, and it looks like you're throwing away potential fruit, and you are throwing away potential fruit in service of the fruit that exists, because otherwise you wind up with, you know, just a mess. I'm thinking particularly in my garden this year, I didn't get enough work done early enough, and the tomatoes went nuts. And you know, you've got to, you know, same thing with any kind of fruit tree, you've got to prune it so that the growth of the tree, the growth of the plant itself is useful.
And I want to point to, like, one of my challenges as the CEO of my life, let alone a CEO of a business, has been and was in my life, plagued by all the ideas that I see. Like, I think when you're a CEO and you have big ideas, I was afraid to prune any of them because I didn't know which one was going to take off, and they all felt equally important. You're like, and you're equally excited about all the new growth. You're like, look at that little thing grow, and look at that one over there. And the process for me of understanding a framework and how to create it was so liberating for me, because I had to go through the rigor of feeling into what are the key parts that feel most important to me, so that once I had them, I'm like, this is everything now that I interact with is going to find itself inside of these edges. Otherwise, it's not important to me. I'm going to prune it. But until I actually found the edges, everything felt important. And I gave my energy and ideas to everything. And then people looked at me like a dreamer who couldn't follow through because my garden was going crazy. I couldn't focus.
Yeah.
One of the hardest problems for CEOs is to focus.
Yeah. Yeah. And we know that any business, again, I think about, my particular business of real estate is, when you niche down, you get productive.
Yeah.
So focus is one of those words that may go into mission too,
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Somewhere in there. Good. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to put a pin in it for today.
I love it. I guess the invitation to all of you listening, all 5 to 7 of you listening, would be to learn more about the Mindful CEO community, right? To be a part of and to play in this framework.
Yep.
There I am developing. Go to themindfulceo.com/invite and click apply and fill out your application.
Yeah, great. And we'll help you hash out your own framework for what you're up to.
Totally. Yeah. Awesome.
Great. Perfect.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron. Good stuff.
Good stuff, Chris.
See you next time. Bye.